Hey everyone, I'm a software engineer. I've been working professionally in the industry for I always mess that up for some reason. In the industry for the last 8 years, doing full stack development for a wide range of companies, from 3-person startups all the way up to 25,000 person companies. And recently, for the last almost month and a half now, I've been streaming, documenting my game development learning journey using the Godot open source game engine. It's been a really good time. I've built myself a playground with a number of different features and systems, and I'm just trying to get a better sense for game development and build out some of the things that I might want to add to a game in the future. So as I normally start out all of these streams, I boot up the game and show you what I've built so far. So we've got a main menu here, very simple: continue, new game, load game, exit. There's a whole save system, so you can load games if you want. If we boot into a new save or new game file, you see that we're dropped down into a top-down view of a player. Wow, there's a bunch of zombies around. Basically, the main premise of what I've built out so far is that it's nighttime, it's dark, you can't see anything when your flashlight is off. When your flashlight is turned on, then you can start seeing some of the enemies. And they follow you within a certain distance, and if you shoot your weapon, they start following you within a certain distance as well. I built out an inventory system where you can drag and drop different items. So if we go and kill some of the zombies here, we can open up what I call a dual inventory menu, where you can drag and drop between inventories. All the zombies right now have some random items. Right now it's just ammo, because that's the only consumable item that exists in the game. I've built out a save system, like I mentioned. I have a chunking system, so as you move around the map, different chunks load in and out. I built what I've called Sixth Sense, so it's this yellow rectangle here. There's no sound in the game, so right now, if you don't have your flashlight on and you there's no way for you to know where zombies are. So I've basically built a way to like mimic sound by using just this little yellow rectangle. It tells you where the closest zombie is to you at any given time. What else have I built? I built weapon delay. I have delineations between ranged and melee weapons. Added some, basic tree foliage. I added chests. So basically what I'm doing on the streams is just, every time building out a few more features. Last stream, I added the delineation between, I added basically the concept of an NPC class. So originally I just had a zombie, and that was kind of being used everywhere. But now I have zombies that extend enemies, and that enemy extends NPCs. So there's kind of a class structure. Basic information that might be on an NPC would also be on an enemy, would also be on a zombie, which should allow me to easily add both enemy NPCs as well as friendly NPCs and any kind of like non-player character. Did the same with weapons, like I mentioned. So there's a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, which extend weapon. Means I can add, a magic weapon or other types of things like that in the future. And they all have some base information shared, but it makes it really easy in Godot to do to check what kind of class you have. So if I go into, let's see, I think zombie, there should be a handful of different places where I do this, but in Godot there's a nice way to check if something is a particular class. It's with the is keyword. Let's see, an enemy, is there something? Maybe in player. Yes, so it says if blank is enemy. So that allows me to say if this body is an enemy, then do something that only an enemy, would only happen on an enemy. Something different might happen if it's just a base NPC or a friendly NPC or whatnot. So yeah, I've built out kind of this whole playground that allows me to build and test new features. So let's get started on what I want to work on today. So we've gotten ourselves a pretty good structure for like the base game. We've got movement, we've got some weapons, we've got some enemies, an inventory system, chests. So now we need to start filling out the game with a little bit more. And what I'm not loving right now is that the flashlight is... It's kind of a crutch. You need to have it on, and one of the things that I've kind of done in testing just to like find zombies quicker is just to like spin around the flashlight here and then find, you know, there's a zombie over here. So I want there to be, I want the flashlight to kind of be a later game item, or an item that you can collect at some point. So I think I'm going to make at some point, whether it's this stream or one coming up. Let me just make sure I am actually live here. Yeah, I am. Whether it's this stream or one in the future, gonna turn the flashlight into a item that you can equip, and I think I'll have a, what am I calling it, like an equipment slot or something, where like the flashlight can act as like a piece of equipment, so it's not just like on the player by default. So I want to do that at some point, but before that, because I'm going to be removing the flashlight as an item to use, I want there to be just a basic circle around the player that has some light, because you know, when it's nighttime, you're in the dark, you can still see a little bit around you. It's never like fully pitch black, so I want there to be like a little bit of distance where the player can see just naturally, which I think will make things feel a little bit better. And then from there, I think I want to add a torch as a weapon that you can pick up, and maybe even just as the base weapon that you start out with. And then from there, being able to like pick up a rifle and a sword, and maybe add some other weapons and things that you find as you are walking around. There needs to be some objective to the game, so I need to start thinking about what that's kind of going to look like. But yeah, let's get started adding the light, and then adding a torch, and then I'm gonna have to add the ability for a specific weapon to give off a light source. So that's something that I'll either create a light source weapon as a type of weapon, or certain melee weapons might be able to have that, or even, I guess, any kind of weapon could theoretically have, you know, give off a light source. Like you could maybe attach a flashlight to a rifle in the future, and then you don't have to like hold it in a hand or whatnot. But I think there's a lot of stuff that you can do there. But I basically want to get rid of the flashlight as being a starting item. Just have a way for you to be able to see enemies just in general. So let's go into the player. Both the scene and the script. And right now the flashlight is just this hard-coded scene, or node I should say, that is of type point light 2D. And so right now I have some like very janky code here that's basically, I don't honestly fully understand what's going on here, because it's been a while since I've used it. I think it's basically, I don't know why it looks like this. Oh, because there's a collision polygon that I'm trying to match the side. Okay, so the flashlight point light is a texture which changes the color of the background. And so I've just, based on how I drew it in Sprite, which is a program to allow me to draw kind of like pixel art and stuff. This is how I've lined everything up. So we'll need to basically remove this and maybe like put it in either put it in another scene, or just kind of redo all of the flashlight stuff once we get to it as an item, which is probably perfectly fine to do later. We'll just need to make some modifications here, because this is all kind of hard-coded on the player. So yeah, we have all this like point light, enemy light, collision stuff. Okay, so it's like doing things when flashlight is enabled. I have some logic around like flashlight energy. That might be something I want to add to a flashlight as well. Like it can run out of batteries. But let's first go ahead and remove. So let's first pull this up. Do I have anything here? Okay, so we're going to let's just remove all of the flashlight code from, actually no, let's not do that. So we don't want to, we still want there to be some, can't tell if the music's too loud, so I'm going to turn it down just a smidge. Let's see. So we want the point light to change to a circle, because that's always just going to be on around the player. So what we can do, actually I want to see if there's any other types here around lights that might be better than point light. Cast light in a 2D environment. Includes light cast by a light 2D. So we probably still want to use point light because it's radiating from the player. And the way I was able to get, I think there's a bit of a fade on the flashlight. So if I come in here, you can kind of see how towards the end of the flashlight it fades out, and I did that by adding a gradient on the sprite of the flashlight here. Just wondering if there's a, I need to remind myself why there needs to be a texture on the point light here. So by default, 2D scenes are unshaded with no lights and shadows visible. It's fast to render, but they look bland. Okay, so point lights are for omnidirectional or spotlights. Directional lights for sunlight or moonlight. And light occluders for shadow casters. Okay, so sprite 2Ds are used to display the textures for the light blobs, the background, and for shadow casters. So I guess we do have to use a sprite 2D still no matter what, unfortunately. Unless there's a way. Let's come back in here. Unless there's a way to do a... It's possible canvas texture or gradient texture 2D could act as what we want. Let's actually give this a try real quick. Oops. Why isn't this letting me select it? Okay, I can move it like, oh, it's because it's, okay, hold on. Let me just go ahead and center it. Why is it so far off to the right? Oh, because the offset. Let's get rid of that. All right, so great. We can make that bigger. So let's make the scale 4 times larger. And then the gradient, is there a way to, yes, there is a way to adjust the gradient here. So we're gonna have to figure out how to make this a circle. Excuse me. Okay, so you can flip it like that. Okay, so I think we want radial. And then we need it to let's see. What happens if we change this? Okay, so let's revert these changes. Okay, so we can drag it in the center. So it's going to be, I guess, 0.5 to 1. Okay, so it starts in the center and goes out. I don't think we want repeat on. And really, we actually want it to go the other way because we want it to be light on the inside and dark on the outside. Okay, how do we, let's see, how do we invert this? There we go. So we can invert it like that. And then is there a way to make it even less? Just not quite so dark on the edges. There we go. So we can adjust that. Okay, so that looks decent. Let's just give this a look. All right, so that looks terrible, but it's a start. Why is that shaped like a rectangle? There's some weird player scaling thing that's happening here. Oops, what did I do? Okay, turn shadow back on. I don't want the color to be quite so dark. Although maybe that's just the shadow color actually, so let's leave it the same. Okay, so we still want it to be mix. It's just getting so dark on the outsides. Hold on. Oh, it must be doing a rectangle because we're doing, yeah, let's go into point light. We must be changing, yeah, normal point light scale. We don't want to be doing any of this. Whoops. Come back to me, please. Thank you. Yeah, so we're setting the scale here. So let's not do that. I guess we can leave it for now, but we'll change the normal point light scale to be... Actually, no, we just don't even want to do that at all. Okay. Great. So now it's square. Is there any way to get it to both be a circle and kind of fade to transparency on the outside? So let's go into here. And I guess actually, yes. So if we set the outside alpha to 0, so it'll be fully transparent on the outside. I think this is kind of what we're looking for. It's closer. You can still see the outline a little bit, which is strange. Maybe I'm doing some like canvas modulation here. Not modulating, it seems. Let's try blend mode add. No, that doesn't look right. I think mix is better, but let's see. I think we're possibly seeing, let's increase the scale of this just a smidge. So we're possibly seeing some of it just because I need to pull in the, so if we go back up to the gradient, if I pull in this, I think it should bring it inside. Yeah, because it's going all the way to the edges. So if I bring this inside of the edges, yeah, that looks better. There we go. That's basically what I'm looking for. Great. I do think it needs to be a smidge bigger because you just need to be able to see a little bit further. And then the big difference here then is the enemy collision shape. Enemy light collision shape is no longer a, what in the world am I doing here? No longer a triangle. Oh boy, what is this? Why does it look like this? Oh, probably because I don't want it to be a collision polygon, so I'd rather it be a collision shape, and then we can make the shape a circle. There may have actually been some settings there that we needed to handle, but we won't worry about that quite yet. Why are you not centered on the player? Because enemy light collision is not centered. So let me fix that positioning. So I'd done that because I wanted it to come from kind of the player's weapon positioning. But now that we're not, so I think this needs to be about the same size that the light is. So let's give this a try. Okay, so that didn't work, and it's probably because we're setting the enemy light collision stuff in code as well. So we're setting the scale. And we actually don't want to okay, so now we can actually go about deleting all of the flashlight stuff. The flashlight energy just going to affect other things. but we'll get to that. Flashlight energy cooldown. Okay, so anything related to flashlight here, we can delete. So let's see, when are we calling all of this? Okay, so we're saying, so we just want point light to be enabled at all times. Which I think should... Okay, get rid of all these. Great, so I think we connect to this in, possibly in Zombie, no. In Game UI for sure. So update flashlight energy. Let's actually get rid of the flashlight. Any mention of flashlight from the game UI. Let's go into the game UI real quick because I do think I need to remove it. Yes, flashlight. Let's go ahead and delete the node. Okay, this should maybe work. Okay, so the point light is disabled for some reason, which might just be... might be doing something in the player. So it's enabled here. So am I disabling this in the player? Okay, let's not even have... So in ready, we'll just say self.enable point light. That's all enabled. Let's give this a try again. There we go. So it's on by default and zombie doesn't show up. And that is, why is that? Probably something to do with marking visible and not visible. So I probably changed the, no, the masking, like the collision layers should be the same here. So let's just print out entering area. And let's see if this even prints out here. It's possible yeah, so the area for we're not still setting this, are we? Hold on. Is moving? I don't know what that was being used for. Did we, oh, I think we must have had a, we must need a body entered on this, which can then... Wait, yeah, actually, why aren't we doing this? Why are we doing this on the zombie? Hold on. On light collision area entered? This should all be done on the player, no? Because once the... Okay, so if we add a function here that basically says if body is enemy, actually in this case, let's just start with zombie because I don't want to necessarily say that everything will be invisible. Every enemy will be invisible. And I also don't want to add the mark visible. Oh wait, that's on an enemy anyway. Oh, I have it on both. Okay. So we'll actually then say if body is enemy, body dot mark visible with true, and then we'll do the same when a body exits. Except say it's false. So let's see if this works. Did not seem to work. Okay. Print enemy entered. Enemy exited. So it's possible it's just I have something somewhere that's saying it's way too small of a range that we're triggering this. So yeah, that's not even getting triggered. So clearly the masking here is wrong. So it's on layer 3, but it should be looking to the enemy layer, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 2, I think. No, it's on 3. So I think actually, how did I mess this up? I think this should be looking to 3, and it doesn't need to be on 3. It should just be looking for... Okay, so that didn't work. So the enemy collision is looking to 3, and that's the same thing as the light collision here. So we... Oh, wait a sec. What is the size of... Hold on. No, let's undo that. We aren't messing with the size here, are we? Enemy light collision? Okay, we don't ever need to enable or disable that anymore. Oh, because we disable it there. Excuse me, but no, then we enable it, so I don't really understand why that's not working. Might need to turn debug values on, actually. Oops, did I kill the game? That was weird. Oh, there we go. Okay, now they're showing up and not show. Okay, actually, okay, this is working perfectly. Great. That's pretty nice actually, and we can shrink the. Actually, shrink the. We can make this bigger actually. So let's make the scale just like 9. Hey, Pixel Pilot. Thanks. Cool. So that looks pretty decent now. So instead of having a flashlight, we now just have... It's very grainy, which is interesting. I'm surprised the lighting... As you're moving around, you can actually see the... You probably can't see it on the stream, but you can see the graininess of the light here. I wonder if there's a setting for... that, but maybe there isn't. It's not a big deal. It just looks a little funny. All right, cool. So let's get this committed so that we know exactly when we moved the flashlight stuff off of the player, so that when we go to add a flashlight equipment item in the future, we can kind of reference what we were doing previously. Let's commit this. Removed flashlight from player and instead added base light source around player. Cool. So now we were talking about adding a torch as a weapon, which will also give off light. So we'll need to kind of think about how this will interact with the current light source we have around the player. Just in that it'll need to make game sense to... Like, you know, when you're holding a torch, it gives off light around where you are. So it'll need to be big enough such that it actually makes sense to have a torch equipped, if that makes sense. But first, let's just go ahead and make the torch weapon item. So it's going to be a melee weapon. So we've got this items list that we'll add the torch to in a bit. But first, let's create in weapons here. Let's create a new script called torch. If we open this up, we'll have it extend melee weapon. So it gets all of the attributes that are both on melee weapon and weapon itself. There's knockback strength. We've given our melee weapons the ability to knock back enemies, just to kind of push them away. There's some basic intersection finding for which enemy the melee weapon should hit. This kind of happens on this might actually happen on ranged weapons exactly the same too. No, actually, what is the difference here? Oh, we're doing the knockback stuff. We can also update this to be enemy now. Because I think enemies should have, yeah, the knockback information. So we did that in the other stream. Or one of the last couple streams that we had. Is there anything else we need to consider here? I don't really think so. I'm pretty sure we can essentially do what sword is doing. We still need to figure out the like animations for shooting and using melee weapons, because right now I'm just using the same thing for both melee and ranged weapons, so we'll adjust this in the future. But for now, I think we'll copy it just for ease. So we should honestly be able to do exactly the same thing here, except change class name to torch. Change these. I think this torch will be the 4th item. We'll have the damage be 2. So same as the sword. We can probably make the sword stronger. One thing I might want to add is like an area, not an area of effect, but a damage over time aspect for fire. So maybe that's something we can play with. Let's give it the same range as a sword for now. Same sound range, which is very short. Give it a little bit longer weapon delay, perhaps. And then same knockback, actually a little less knockback strength for the moment. And actually, if I come into sword here, let's go ahead and make the damage a little bit better and the range a little bit better too. Maybe 200. Great. So that should be fine. And then all of this should be the same for both for now. And yeah, so let's go into the player. So instead of now starting with and we need to go into items list and add torch. Great. So when we're initializing kind of the rifle, sword, rifle ammo stuff here, this can all be updated to just start with a torch. Oh, and that's the amount, so it's only 1. We'll add it to the player's inventory. Great, and so we want to then update, let's update chests when we're randomizing inventory to also include the possibility of a rifle or sword. So chests right now spawn, they have a 10% chance of spawning in any given chunk. So we've got random items. We'll say chance of rifle equals say a 40% chance. Chance of sword is actually, let's make this even lower. There's a 50% chance of a sword, and then there's always going to be a chance of rifle ammo. So then we can say say just weapon chance is rand float and range 0 to 1. So if weapon chance is less than chance of rifle, we'll go ahead and create a rifle. create it as a stackable item with amount 1. And then we'll add it to the next empty slot. And we'll do the same thing here with a sword. And maybe we'll say you can't have both a sword and a rifle in the same chest. So if a rifle spawns, we will override that from a sword perspective. And since the chance of a rifle is less, we want that to go first. So let's make this sword. And then add that. Okay, great. So now we have a bit more variability in our chests. You start with a torch and no rifle ammo. So now there's actually like a meta objective, or you know, a basic objective, which is to find. So that works. Knockback works. The torch works. There's no really way to know that you have it aside from the UI element up here. So now you basically need to look for chests, and found one pretty quick here. And look at that. It contained a rifle, which was a 20% chance of happening. So, and a ton of ammo. Cool. So we already have, you know, the best weapon that you can have. That's great. Okay, so now we were thinking about having a... Okay, I actually think while we're here, I will remove shadows on dead zombies because that looks a little weird. So, do we even use this anymore? I think we still do. Which also reminds me, when we have other NPCs, we'll need to probably make the dead zombie stuff a little more generic. But we'll get to that. Let's see. Okay, handle dead zombie creation. We want to mark the light collision area. As disabled, basically. So I think we say, okay, we've got light collision scene. Come on now. We've got light collision scene. So we set... I actually don't even think we need this anymore. Right? Yeah, I honestly don't think this is used anymore because I'm doing it all within the player now, which should work. So if I just delete this node, then we also need to delete the light collision scene. So we delete those references, but here we need to say, on the dead zombie scene, no, on, okay, we want to disable the light occluder, I think is what we want. So let's get access to this here. Light occluder scene. And then in the same area, we say light occluder scene dot, what is it? Maybe we just want to turn the light mask off. Though I'd rather just disable it, but I don't know if there's a setting for that. So, let's see, how do we set this? Okay, we need to look up the docs here. Okay, unhelpful. Light occluder 2D. Light occluder 2D. I don't know why that didn't just show up there. So how do we set the... Okay, it is just set occluder light mask. Huh. Strange. What if we set it to 0, does that turn it off? Only one way to find out, I suppose. Oh, and we didn't save the game, so we need to go find our rifle again. Just make things go a little bit faster. Okay, let's just give that a save. Okay, so there we go. The light mask is turned off now, which means there's no shadow cast on dead zombies, which looks much, much better. Awesome. Great. So now we need to add for the torch. Steve says, why still Godot? As opposed to Unity or Unreal. I started picking up Godot several years ago, and for the most part, I just want to make indie games, and Godot's perfectly acceptable for that. I don't know that I'm gonna do like crazy 3D stuff ever, so using it for 2D is perfectly good. And at this point, I've learned enough about it that I can build out different things. And it's relatively straightforward. I feel like if I had to go and learn Unity or Unreal, I'd have to learn C#, and then also how those game engines work, and the editors and whatnot. But I've got myself a nice little development setup, you know, dev flow going on here. So it's not too bad. All right, so let's add the light source to our torch. And I'm realizing we can probably, what we've got going on with flashlight point light here, we can probably make a scene that contains all of the information that this has, and then reuse it across the player here and the torch. Cafe Beef, nice name. Yeah, Godot's your favorite game engine, at least for 2D. Yeah, it's I find it really straightforward and easy to use. It's super powerful. They're always adding more stuff. I love that there's no, like, if I ever decide to release a game, I don't have to pay royalties to anyone. Obviously, I think if I ever made a successful game, I would be donating, you know, a certain portion of that to the Godot devs, just because, you know, wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But the fact that it's not mandatory or predatory in any way is a really big plus in my book. Okay, so let's make a generic flashlight point light scene that allows you to, at least in this case, have circular light sources that you can easily add to different places. So we could do this, you know, maybe we'll have light posts or something else that gives off light in a circular pattern. So I think this is a fine thing to make reusable right now, because we already have two cases where we do want to use it. So let's create a new folder actually called light sources. And in here, we'll create a new scene called circular light source. This is going to be a 2D scene, not a user interface. If we open this up, we want to change the type to a point light 2D. And here, really we want it to be exactly the same as this one. Is there a way to copy the attributes of this without needing to redo it? Probably not, but it shouldn't be too bad to get this all the same. So let's add the texture, which we said was a gradient texture 2D. Let's see if we can do this by memory. Blend mode is mix. The color, I guess we can specify that in code dynamically. So we'll leave it as white. Shadow is enabled. And I think we want that to be black. Fork and shovel looking icon on top right inspector. Or I can save. Wait, is that a thing you can do? Save. Like with save branch as scene. Oh my God. That's pretty cool. Great. So let's delete this. Thank you for that tip. That's actually really super handy. Don't save. Great. Come back to the player. Save branch as scene in light sources. Circular light source. What did you say? That's an option 2. Fork shovel lets you copy all parameters. Oh, interesting. What is the fork shovel? Oh, wait, this thing? Oh, copy properties. You learn something new every day. Thank you. Sorry, what was your name? Alpenka. Thank you for the tip. I really appreciate that. Oh, and that even makes, like, turns this into the same thing. Oh, that's really nice, actually. Okay, cool. So let's adjust the color here back to white. Shadow is black. We can make the scale set to 1. And then we'll have to adjust this programmatically in code, but that's okay. Let's add a script here. And we'll say class name is circular light source. Let's add an init function, which takes in, actually, do we? I've been torn between the initialization pattern and just setting, like using getters and setters for certain attributes on classes. And I'm not sure what is the best in Godot. I mean, obviously, if there are ones that need to explicitly be set, then it's probably better to do it as an initialization step, but you can instantiate it as a child. You can have the scene inherit from it as well. Cool. That's really good to know. Thank you. Okay, so I don't actually think we need an init here, but we do. Oh no. Okay, let's just start out with some different functions here. So we'll say we'll have a set color function. Which takes in a color, returns void. And we'll say self dot, what is it? I guess self dot color equals color. Is this already a protected function? Okay. So we don't then need that. Is this also the same for set scale? I never remember which values here are protected or not. Yeah, okay, so that's also protected, so we don't need to do that. Is there any other value we want to set here? It's really just the scale and the color, I think. For now, at least. But basically what we got out of this was this texture being circular. Okay, so I think that's okay. So let's come back into the player here. And we'll grab the point light. Let's update this now to be point light scene. I guess is fine. Flashlight, point light. Okay. And now this is just gonna be like player point light. So here we need to set the scale in our ready function. So we'll say player. Wait, what do we call this? Point light scene. Point light scene dot set scale. And I think we were doing 9 by 9. Do you pass in a vector 2 or do you pass in an X and a Y? Really? Oops. Let me just get rid of all these open editors that I don't need. There's a lot of them. Okay. I swear it existed, so I don't know why I'm not seeing the definition here. Okay, it does take a vector too. It's strange. Hold on one sec. Sorry about that. There's a squirrel in our front yard and my dogs are freaking out about it, as they usually do. Okay, so we set that 9x9. The color's going to be off, but we can adjust that in just a moment. Let's see if this works. No, set scale and base null instance on a null instance. Why doesn't this exist? Point light scene, player, point light. So that's not a capital L. So maybe now it'll actually show the proper definition for this. No, maybe not. Interesting. Cool. So yeah, honestly, I don't think it needs to be yellow. We might want to add the... I'm torn between adding... I probably need the dead zombies to be... kind of have the same light collision aspect as the zombies, because you shouldn't really be able to see it over there. It just kind of is a nice thing to have from a player, you know, just remembering where you are. But we can get to that in a little bit. Okay, so that looked correct. And then we want to do the same for torch. So we will add okay, so we don't have anything right now that when you equip different weapons, there is no scene that's associated with them. It's more an attribute of the player, or in our case, actually, the inventory. And then the player has access to that if it's in your weapon inventory. So we need to have a way to display a particular scene when a weapon is equipped. So we'll need to add that. Which should be totally fine. It we can probably have a base weapon scene that has a sprite attached to it, and then we can instantiate that when we have a weapon equipped and pass in the weapon sprite to that scene, and then just display it on the player. I think that should work, which will allow us to display a torch that has a light point scene attached to it, specifically the circular light source that we just added. It does mean, however, that we need to come up with sprites for the other weapons in the game, which is totally doable. It's just like another element of stuff to work on. Okay, I think that all makes sense. We've been streaming for like an hour and 10 minutes. Give me like 5 minutes. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab myself more water. Maybe just get a snack real quick, but I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Thanks for staying with me, whoever stayed with me. For all I know, I could have lost everyone. Nah, there's still some people hanging out. All right. Where was I? Right. So I need to create a weapon scene that allows me to display any kind of weapon that I want. To create a new scene, let's call it weapon, let's say base weapon scene. And so this will essentially be we need a sprite as a child. And then I'm wondering if we also want the circular light source to be a child. Or maybe you could pass in any kind of light source. And then it's just disabled for most weapons. That's probably how we can do it. So let's add a sprite 2D. Let's call it weapon sprite. And then, so the texture will need to be passed in, which I'll need to figure out how to do that programmatically. I can probably just pass in a path to it, would be my guess. And let's add, do we need a script? Do we need a script for it? Probably, yeah. What will we do? So we'll say class name is base weapon scene. Hey Daniel, how's it going? So we'll need a way to set the sprite. So I need to figure out how this works exactly, but it might be a path. So let's try this for now. Oops, that's not a function. So sprite path is a string. We'll say self.sprite path. And really, actually, we can do a getter and a setter. Hey, Boostery. You see, I'm breaking watching records. Am I really? If that's the case, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. Thanks for hopping on. Daniel, you're doing Swift Godot. So when I, maybe 6 months ago, when I kind of started getting back into game development using Godot. I looked into Swift Godot as well, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I was thinking about, trying to learn Swift and Godot at the same time. What is the benefit of this? Can you write Godot using Swift? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that's kind of how it works. Yeah, I was thinking about doing that and learning Swift at the same time because I wasn't like a huge fan of GDScript. I found that the more I've used GDScript, it's actually been, pretty straightforward to use. So I kind of scrapped that idea early on. But I have wanted to learn more iOS development, but just haven't gotten around to it yet. Yeah, so I wanted stronger typing in GDScript as well. Yeah, there's less type safety in GDScript than I would like there to be, especially around like interfaces and object, like their dictionary typing. But there are ways to get around it just using like actual class structures. I haven't found it to be too bad. I've also added a lot of assertions. Yeah, GDScript it does look nice. It's like Python basically. And there's a bit more strict typing than yeah, the syntax of GDScript isn't too bad. But yeah, it's not as strict as I would like it to be. How am I not getting mixed up from all the languages? As soon as you start learning something new, you forget all the previous stuff. I mean, I've been working as a software engineer professionally now for the last 8 years, so so much of it's ingrained just in what I do. Like most of that has been in JavaScript, TypeScript, Node, and React. And so, using that for years on end, you just kind of become second nature. I have found recently though, I will, as I start, like if I've been working on Godot for a while and then do some JavaScript stuff and vice versa, I'll forget some of the typing. Because like in TypeScript, integers are called numbers. In Godot, they're called ints. And so I was doing some work a couple weeks ago, and I was like, why is int not working properly in TypeScript? Like it's not making any sense. And then I realized, oh, it's actually number. Same with array, like some of the typing around arrays and everything. So I don't know, you just kind of get used to it, but I definitely have had times where it's been, I've gotten myself mixed up. Do I use GD extensions at all? Swift Godot is built on GD extensions, and you're wondering when you'll come across the jankiness. I don't. I haven't used any GD extensions. I've heard about some, just like a couple examples of like terrain generation and maybe some like testing. Actually, I tried using an extension for the editor back before I learned about LSP, the language server protocol that allows you to use VS Code with Godot. That was actually one of my biggest gripes with Godot at the beginning, was that I use Vim key bindings in VS Code and some other, nice extensions, and I didn't want to have to like configure the Godot engine here when I'm like working in scripts here to like use Vim key bindings and whatnot. So I was really happy to find that it had a built-in integration with the language server protocol that the game engine basically creates a little server that VS Code can plug into, and then all of your changes in VS Code like make it into the game engine and vice versa. And so you can also like open up a script in the Godot editor, and then it opens up in VS Code. So that's super handy. But that's about as far as I've done on any kind of extension stuff. Um, when I was messing around with the Vim extensions in Godot, it just didn't really work very well. But I think that was a me thing, not a extensions thing. But overall, I haven't heard too much about extensions in the game engine, and I don't know exactly how they work. Okay. Hey, Emma. How's it going? Okay, so we've got the sprite path. So I assume there's a way to, like, on ready, the weapon sprite should already be available here. So we can do on ready var, weapon sprite scene is weapon sprite. Good luck. Thanks. I need it. So I think here we can probably say weapon sprite scene dot set. How do I programmatically set a sprite? Cool. All right, let's see if Godot 4 programmatically set sprite in sprite 2D. Oh, is it sprite.texture and you just pass in, you say load? Okay, that might be it. Sprite dot, or no, weapon sprite scene dot texture equals load self dot sprite path. So we should assert that self dot sprite path does not equal the empty value. I assume this will also throw an error. Returns a resource from the file system. Look at the absolute path, unless it's already referenced elsewhere. To avoid unnecessary delays when loading something multiple times, either store the resource in a variable or use preload. Maybe it doesn't return an error. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here if this sprite path doesn't lead to an actual sprite, but we can figure that out when we get there. So let's see. I think that might be all we need to do for now, because we want to add the ability to add a light scene here. But we'll cross that bridge in a little bit. So let's go into the player. And now as we equip a weapon, we want to add more here to basically display this base weapon. So as a example, we'll start out with base weapon scene, preload, base weapon scene. Let's actually update the class name to just be base weapon. And then in equip weapon, we can say weapon scene equals base weapon scene dot instantiate, and then we will set the sprite path don't understand why that weapon. This should be strongly typed. Sprite path. Why is this not showing up? Weird. Okay, whatever. Equals, and then we'll do, oh, we don't have a sprite for this yet, so we'll just use something else. What other assets do we have here? I guess we can do, just set it to a, top-down tree for the moment. So this path should be, what is it? Oh yeah, res. Okay, so equip weapon. So res / assets top-down tree.png, and then we'll need to add. So if weapon does not equal null, actually, hold on. We don't want to do this yet. We want to do this in here. So if weapon does not equal null, we'll say self.addChild. And we'll need to update the positioning on the weapon scene a little bit, but we can just add it as a child here. So let's give this a go. Okay, let's give this a try. Let's see if this works at all. I think, okay, that does actually work. That's funny. I'm glad to see that isn't too complicated. The positioning here, though, we'll want it to be, say weapon scene dot position. We want it to be a little bit, leave the X at 0 for the moment, and then the Y, set it to like 20. We want this to be a vector 2. It's also, just because it's the tree, we'll set the scale equal to vector 2, like 0.25, 0.25. See how this works. Okay, so it does show up there, which is totally fine for the moment. Realizing actually I have no idea what the player's oriented at. Might be like this to start. Let me look at that real quick. Yeah, okay, so 20 is gonna be there, so we actually want it to be 20 in the X ish. And this sprite, this player sprite, doesn't really you know, work super well because it has a weapon kind of built into it, so we will probably want to update that going forward, but for now it's not a big deal. We also need to grade, so that should work great. We do need to call equip weapon, I think, on the start here. So if self.inventory.weapon inventory equipped weapon does not equal null, I think we want to say self.equip weapon true, because that will show the, yeah, I think that's okay. That'll show the weapon there, and this should, that doesn't remove it. Okay, so we also need, when we're unequipping the weapon, in the opposite fashion, we want to remove the child. So we can store a reference to base weapon in the player. We'll say base weapon scene is of type base weapon. We'll set it to null to start. Then we will, instead of saying weapon scene, we'll just say self.base weapon scene. Instantiate it there. Do this for everything here. Great. And then otherwise, self.base weapon scene.queueFree. And we might just want to double check that it exists first. So if base self.base weapon scene, I guess we can say is base weapon, because this should also check if it's nullable. Then we can queue free it. So if we unequip our weapon, it disappears. It's great. Let's try starting a new game as well. Make sure that that's all working properly too. If we equip our torch, great. Then the little tree shows up. So that looks all a-okay there. Okie doke. Cool. Great. So let's add some sprites here for different items. So let's go to itch.io. And we'll have a tag be weapons. Actually, we may just want to not even do a sprite path. We may just want to do a sprite scene that we can set. But we'll get to that in a sec. All right, these ones might be good. Do I have to pay for this? I don't think so. Just want some free weapons right now. Now how I grab all of these, not totally sure, but we'll figure that out. All right, let's go ahead and grab. Okay, so they're all in a single PNG here, but they don't seem to be lined up well. So we may have to do some manual munging here to get this. Actually, we can probably, here's what we'll do. We'll go into Steam. I can load this in the A sprite and then pull out each of the individual ones and just do it like that. I think that should be totally fine. All right, can we open this file? This PNG? We can. We can. Okay, so let's create a new. Oops. Let's not add anything to these. See, these are relatively small. What is the size of this? What's this positioning here? It's like 140 by 170-ish. Okay, so each of these... I wonder if we can... like, drag... Hold on, where are all the... select? Can we, like... Whoops. Can we select and then create a new scene from this? Whoops. Or can we export even just this? Whoops. Whoa, that's interesting. Does anyone know how to do this? Export from a selectable. Okay, I can crop it, actually. Hey, Michael. So for the last, like, I don't know, month and a week, 5 weeks-ish, I've been streaming my game development learning journey. And so I've built out a little, like, game playground that allows me to test out different features, different game systems that I might want to build into a game in the future. I'm basically expanding this into, you know, more of a game with different things. But the basic premise is that you control your player character with mouse and keyboard. The player looks where you're looking. I've built out different, like an inventory system, different weapon systems. But right now, there are zombies that kind of follow you when you get close to them. And then if I kill one here, I can open up a dual inventory that has some items here that a player might want to use. I've added chests into the game, and currently at the beginning of the stream, I made a change where you don't spawn with a weapon anymore outside of a torch. And so you basically need to go searching for chests that have, I think it's this load here. It might not be this one. You need to go searching for weapons, like stronger weapons. And I'm adding more things to the game, like objectives to do. But in general, I've built out a save system, a chunking system. So as you move around the screen here, new chunks load in and out. You can die if you run into a zombie like I just did there. Yeah, it's you know, coming together more and more every time I stream. And there's little features here and there like weapon knockback. There's the delineation between ranged weapons and melee weapons, delineation between enemies and other non-player characters, slowly adding new items. Right now I'm currently working on adding sprites for when you equip weapons. So different weapons will have different sprites. I'm adding that specifically right now for a torch, so that you can have a weapon that allows you to like give off light. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but the basic premise is that it's at nighttime. You can only see enemies when they're within either a certain radius of the player, or when you pick up a flashlight, which I had in the game as a default like item or a attribute of the player, and removed that in the stream to instead add kind of a light around the player where you can see zombies and enemies. So I'll be adding a flashlight at some point, but I basically needed items and weapons that have sprites where you can add kind kind of what that looks like so that I can add point lights to a particular item, and in this case torch. That'll allow you to like have a little bit more visibility, which I think will be a nice addition, because that's what the flashlight was acting as. But anyway, right now I pulled a sprite sheet from itch.io, and I was trying to figure out how I could export a specific weapon here just to have as like a testing point for like my rifle, for example. So yeah, you came when I was trying to do that. So I think what I can actually do, hold on, is crop this using sprite crop. And then if I export this, I think I can export this as like rifle, like base rifle. Actually, where did that just get exported to? Hold on. Export as. I want this to be in. Let's see. I can actually probably export this directly to the game folder here. Let's go into weapons. Okay, base rifle.png. Actually, let's put this in assets. Wherever that folder is. Great. So save that as base rifle and export it. And then if I go back here, let's see if it shows up in the game engine here. What does this look like? Okay, that doesn't look too bad. That might totally be fine. So let's then go back to the player. And instead of using the top-down tree asset, let's use the base rifle asset and just see what this looks like. Let's not set the scale to 1/4. So if we start a new game, equip our torch. Cool. So we have a tiny little rifle there that appears. So it needs to be a little bit bigger. So we can actually make the scale like 1.5. See how that looks. I mean, none of this needs to be beautiful by any means. And I don't know. I assume the placement just kind of looks weird like that. Although, is the rifle itself angled? What's angled here? Can I get rid of the debug shapes? How do I do that in the editor itself? I'm not sure. Though, hide debug, collision shapes in editor. How to hide collision shapes? Click on the small eye icon next to the node in your scene tree. Well, I don't really want to do that for all of them. That's not a great answer. see. Seems maybe like it doesn't exist, so that's not a big deal. But essentially, it actually looks like the rifle is maybe pointed, or maybe it has to do with how the... No, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Great. So that's fine. So we need to then update the... Okay, so each weapon then will have a new... So on a base weapon here, so the base weapon class, there will be a new parameter that we need to set when we're initializing, which will be sprite path. I guess actually we could just do sprite itself. I think this will work. So we'll say sprite is of type sprite 2D, and it'll be equal to null. Now when we're initializing, wait, what is the super of? Oh, it's an item. Do items need sprites? Maybe, but let's not worry about that right now. So we'll pass in the sprite path, which is a string. Let's assert, actually we should be asserting that everything here, although we might be doing that in base item. No, we're not. So we should do that here real quick. So it's not equal null. Item ID should be an integer, and we'll probably want to add checking at some point here for to make sure it's like a viable ID. So item name should be a string. So this shouldn't theoretically break anything here. So on the weapon, pass in the sprite path, so we don't need to assert anything about the ID because we're doing that on the parent class, but we do want to say assert that sprite path does not equal the empty string state. Sprite path must exist on a weapon, and then we'll say self.sprite equals sprite 2D dot instantiate why doesn't that work? Maybe it's just new. Okay, interesting. Self.sprite.texture equals sprite path. How was I doing that here? Hold on. Okay, base weapon scene. Right. Oh, we're doing this all wrong anyway. This needs to be of type base weapon. It's null. We'll say base weapon dot instantiate. And actually, we need to do the same thing that we're doing in player here. So we preload the base weapon scene. So we say base weapon scene dot instantiate. And then we pass in sprite path equals sprite path. So that should work. And then we can get the sprite from the actual weapon itself. So rather than doing all of this base weapon instantiation, we should be able to say weapon dot sprite. Should be able to add that as a child. So we are going to then have a bunch of errors here, runtime errors specifically, because we need to pass in now anytime we are we're gonna have a bunch of assertion errors. So we on every weapon now we need to pass in the sprite path so that we can pass that into the parent weapon. Why are you yelling? Too many arguments, expected 2 but got 3. Don't we have it extends weapon though, and on our weapon in it has 3. What am I doing wrong? Okay, let's pass in the sprite path here just to get this working, but it's assets space rifle .png. Okay, you're also yelling now for some reason. Could not resolve class ranged weapon. Probably because there's an error here. I don't feel like this should be erroring out. What am I missing? What, is it because the full parent only has 2? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. Because we had this ammo attribute here, but I guess we were only calling it with... We're only ever calling super with the same amount, so maybe that's the problem. That feels weird though. I really hope that's not a limitation in GD script. No, but we're calling, wait. Hold on. Like in rifle, aren't we calling super with all of this stuff? Why is that? Why does that work? But not. Why does this allow me to pass in 4? And this doesn't. Because this is just extending weapon, which now has a sprite path, which this extends item. Goodness. Maybe then. Well, no. Hold on. This doesn't make any sense. This makes no sense at all. Oh, is this like a wait? Is no. I don't feel like this should be erroring at all. I mean, it doesn't. Okay, now you're. This extends item though, which item now has. This doesn't make any sense because now I've added it to like the base item. And it's still yelling. So, is there? I wonder if it's like an editor thing. So hold on. Let's add this. No, we don't need that there. Ranged weapon. Pass in sprite path. No, cannot resolve class melee weapon. Yeah, well, item ID is the like, I have a class called items list here, which IID is just like the item ID, which is associated with these IDs here. But I'm running into a weird thing where, okay, let's just get this on everything, because I'm wondering if there's just like a editor error here. Okay, we need to do that with rifle. We need to do it with sword. This will also be just for now the same rifle asset. I know you're yelling about not existing. And are we doing this on torch yet? No. So I need to do res assets, base rifle, PNG. Okay, what about now? Okay, that works. So I think it's an editor thing. That's super annoying because it works because I passed in the, yeah, there's a weird editor bug, which I don't like. Don't like that at all. It's super annoying. Okay, what if I quit everything? Maybe it will stop yelling. And we'll open up the, oh, it opens it up automatically for me. Am I mixing languages again? No, I'm definitely not mixing languages again. I think I actually think that was a bug in the editor, because now it doesn't seem to be having an issue. Okay, so now it's yelling that I don't have enough for melee weapon, extends a weapon. Okay, so now it's not having a problem. So yeah, that was an actual editor bug that we found. It's probably not hard to reproduce, and I should probably file a ticket for it for the, I don't know if that's an issue on the Godot side of things or the language server protocol side of things, but maybe if I have some more time later, I can figure out kind of what's going on. Great, so this should be working for all weapons now. We did see that the sprite was getting properly added as a child here when you equip the weapon, so that's all working as intended. So now all we'd have to do is add different sprites for each of the weapons, and we should see different ones pop up. So if we go back to itch.io, so we've got the rifle, we need something for a sword and something for a torch. So let's see if we can't find I guess this is fine enough. Let's go ahead and do the same thing that we did for the rifles. So we just pop this into a sprite, and then whoops, let's create a new actually we can, how to do that, import sprite sheet, was it? Is that what it did? Oh, I didn't know you could do that. No, it was new load. How did I do this? Maybe I just opened like this. Weapons pack. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so we want this sword here. Let's just make sure we got the select tool going. From this corner to that corner. And then we'll crop. And then export as a PNG to our survival game assets, and we'll call this sword. So we'll save that. Oops, I didn't export it. Call this, let's just say base sword PNG, save, export. Then we can undo that. And we may as well use something as a torch here. So we'll just say this club can be our torch. And I am realizing I think I exported the entire sprite pack as the sword. So we'll have to redo that. We'll call this the base torch. And then if we go into Godot, oh no, base sword is right. Yeah, okay. Base rifle, base torch. Okay, so the angles are going to be weird on this for the moment because the torch and the or the this hammer thing and the sword are kind of sideways angled, about a 45-degree angle. But we'll figure that out when we get there. Let's update this to base torch. Let's go into sword. Update this to base sword. So now we need a way to test this. For the moment, let's go ahead and when we're adding the torch to the player inventory, let's go ahead and just add a rifle and a sword so we can test this out real quick. So these will get added to our inventory, and then we can just test real quick how this looks. That's actually, we need to start a new game. Okay, so we add the sword. All right, and it shows up there. Doesn't look beautiful, but it's there. And then, okay, so we're not removing the correct. Let's see, what are we storing as base weapon scene.q free? So we add the weapon sprite. Oh, we're not setting this anymore. So, actually we can do, we don't really want to free the oh. We actually just want to remove the child, is that right? Because if we queue free this and then we try to set it again, it's gonna error. So base weapon scene doesn't exist, but we can say whoops, hold on. So this base weapon scene will actually be wait, is the sprite, hold on. Is the sprite here of base weapon? Okay, let's actually call this base weapon. Excuse me, and we'll have a getter and a setter. And then this needs to be updated. So base weapon. Base weapon. So we don't want to free it. We just want to remove it as a child. So self.base weapon scene equals weapon dot base weapon. And then we'll add self.base weapon to the scene. Instead of queue freeing, self.remove child. What does this take? It takes the actual node. So does that mean we can just do base weapon scene? Let's give this a try. Oh wait, what is, yeah, let's give this a try. Whoa. Wow, that seems to work. Okay, I didn't realize you could do that so easily with adding and removing children like that. I think I messed this up. Yeah, so this is supposed to be sword, stackable item. Cool, I did not realize you could instantiate and then uninstantiate. I mean, add children and remove children like that. That's really nice. Okay, so sword works, removed. Torch works, removed. Rifle works, removed. Add torch. Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Okay, so we're getting close. Now we need the point light source on the torch weapon. Let me remind myself. Did I say this was going to be no, this needs to be an attribute on base weapon itself. So as we're creating the base weapon, which we're doing in weapon, right? Yeah, we're creating this base weapon here. We basically want to say if this particular weapon has a, like, needs a light, then we want to add a light to the base weapon. So I guess first what we'll do is we'll come to the base weapon scene here, and we will start by adding a circular light source as a child here. Just for testing for the moment. So we'll set the scale to be much larger so that it is very obvious that this is working and it's unrelated to the player light source. So it should light up a huge area here. Yeah, okay. I don't know if you can see these. It's not like smooth lighting. There's all the square polygons as it moves out. So I don't know why that's happening. So I'll have to update that at some point. Okay, so we've got that there. So we only want to essentially, we want to have a way to configure the size of this light point here. So, so we'll say weapon light source scale. It's a vector 2, and we'll set it to vector 2 and then just of size 1, and we'll have a getter and a setter. When it gets added, we'll also have enable light source. This will be a Boolean. It's set to false by default. We'll also have a getter and setter. So if enable light source and we need to grab the oh, why is this called flashlight point? Hold on, let's come into the circular, rename this to circular light source, and then come back to the, where was it, base weapon. Let's rename this to circular light source. So eventually this might want to be like I was saying earlier in the stream, any type of light source, not just a circular light source, but we'll, you know, we don't have a use case other than that yet. So we'll say circular light source scene equals circular light source. So if light source is enabled, we'll say circular light source scene dot enabled equals false. Oh, and I'm realizing actually the circular light source is what's gonna need to handle the enemy collision. So we're gonna have to move that off the player as well. Let's actually get rid of some of these other scenes that I'm not looking at. Okay, so we're gonna have to do some refactoring there, which is fine. Okay, so we have that set to, sorry, this is supposed to be true. Otherwise, circular light source scene dot enabled equals false. I don't know if that's gonna work. So that'll be set to false. So it shouldn't actually turn on now when we equip that. But I do think then if we go into torch, when we are, so base torch, oh, wait a sec. Self dot is light, what did I call it? Enable light source. Let's update this to is light source enabled. Self.is light source enabled. Then we'll say is light source enabled, because this should inherit it from the weapon class. Say it's equal to true, specifically for torches, but not for other weapons. So, okay, is light source enabled, valid set index, value of type bool. Is light source enabled, base weapon. Oh, it's on the base weapon. Sorry, not the okay, am I getting ahead of myself here? So the base weapon could exist at that point. I actually think we can say base weapon dot instantiate so it always exists. Instantiate. Hey, geometry, how's it going? Okay, so we don't need to instantiate it here. We can just set the sprite path, which means in torch we can say self.base weapon. Yeah. Okay, I'm not loving the naming conventions here, but we can fix that in a little bit. Dot is light source enabled equals true, specifically for torches. We could instead pass this down from the, okay, let's leave it as is for now. So let's go ahead and test this. So, okay, adding the torch turns that on and actually has shadows on the enemy, which is good, but it's not showing them visibly, so that's something we need to adjust. I was mentioning that, but when we put the rifle on, it doesn't do that. Okay, so that's working as intended. Great. So we need to move the, and this is probably the last thing I'll do today before hopping off. We've been on for almost 2.5 hours. It's actually much longer than I was expecting. So the last thing here, we have all of this. We actually don't even have that much logic, to be fair. It's relatively straightforward. So we do mark visible. No, wait, where is this happening? Down here on enemy light collision, body entered and exited. So this will be done on the circular light source. So we actually want this to be a property of wait, actually, hold on. I think I might need to add a collision. So on the player here, we have enemy light collision. So this we can copy and add as a child of circular light source. So the collision should be what we are expecting. The position, the transformation here, we just want scale to be 1 so that it scales up the same way that the circular light source does. And then we need to add the, let's disconnect these and reconnect them to our script here. Body entered and body exited. So it should be the same name, I think. So we should be able to just copy this from here. Essentially, yes. So that should work. Which means that on the player, we can delete the enemy light collision. Okay, zoom in and zoom out. I actually don't even know that we're really using this anymore. Oh wait, that's just the debug. Okay, let's not worry about that right now. Okay, so this should work. So we can technically add like lamps now, which could be kind of a cool vibe thing every so often. Add a lamp that has a circular light source that will also show and unshow the enemies as they move around. So coming back to base weapon here, we this should actually work. And how are we setting the scale again of the, hold on, I was setting that scale in here, so I think this would theoretically work. No? Okay, so so now they show up. That's awesome. And then I think as I come out of sight here, they disappear. Cool, so that's working. Oh, but we've got a bug now with the, when it leaves the player's area. So we kind of have two things happening here. There's two light sources, and as it leaves one light source, it's setting it to false when it's still in another light source. So we probably should then turn off the player's light source. But does that make them too intertwined? Hold on. So equip the weapon. The player has no understanding of what the weapon's base weapon scene has. Okay, so in circular light source here, when we're saying body.mark visible is true or false when it enters or exits, is there another, there's not another property to say like is still in area? I mean, I do think the easiest thing to do. Oh, actually, it shouldn't be that bad because I have the is light source enabled attribute on the base weapon scene, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, is light source enabled. Okay, so in player, this doesn't get too intertwined here. Let's go to equip weapon. So then we say if self.base weapon scene dot is light source. Wait, is that right? Yeah, is light source enabled. So is light source enabled. Then we want to say our own light source. So the player's light source, which is point light scene, is disabled. Actually, how do we do that? Let's go back to the player point light scene. Do we just say enabled is false? That might be all we do. Equals false. Oops. And then similarly, I guess no matter what, we always just want to say point light scene here is true when we're unequipping a weapon. That way it'll always just get re-enabled. So let's try this again. So, okay, that works just as a base player. Add that those get enabled. And now they should stay. Nope, they're getting disabled still. So I think that it disables the, that disables the light itself, but it does not disable the light collision. Okay, so we actually want to add, I'm realizing, an attribute here. So disable light source, which will be a Boolean. It'll be set to false. Actually, let's say is light source enabled as well. We'll have a getter and a setter. And we'll say if body is enemy, if body is enemy and self.is light source enabled, then we can mark as true and false. So this way we can go into the player and set not only the point light scene enabled, which is the... Oh no, we actually don't want to disable that at all. Actually, I'm realizing, hold on, we don't. No, the issue that I'm thinking about here is, you know, in the case of like a flashlight, where it's not a circular light source, we don't, the light sources are additive, not subtractive, if that makes sense. In the case of the torch, they overlap entirely. Like the torch will probably be bigger than the entire player's light source, so it would work here, but it wouldn't work in every case. So I'm realizing I don't think I want to use this approach, unfortunately. So we will... I don't like this, because now we have to like keep track of who's in what light source and mark them as visible or not. So actually, wait, is this... I still want this. So hold on, we're in the right state here, right? Where you show and disappear, you show, but then you'll disappear there. Okay. Which is definitely not ideal. Okay, I kind of think this is going to require a bit more brain power than I currently have. So we've been going a little over 2.5 hours. I think I am going to end it here, end the stream. And I'll pick this up on the next one, which will be maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then Monday. But yeah, overall, this was a good stream. We mostly were just changing kind of how light worked as a concept in the game. Removed the flashlight, added it to the player, and then started working on weapons having sprites, and then weapons also being able to have point lights, which will add another dynamic to the game. So we'll fix that, or we'll get this working in the next stream, fix that enemy bug, you know, being visible or not, and then also maybe add some like lamp type lights. And I was kind of playing with the idea of having like the moon as a light source with clouds, and so it would be kind of cool to have like some system for that. I don't know exactly how that would work, but just having like a little more ambient light. And then, you know, like I've been saying, add more items and weapons, and it's more objective to the game. But yeah, we're making some good progress here. It's like starting to come together to an actual thing, which is pretty cool. So yeah, thanks everyone for hopping on. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the support and the chats and people asking questions and whatnot. But yeah, with that, I will end the stream here. So thanks everyone, and I'll see you guys either tomorrow or Monday.